Welcome, addicts. In this video, we are taking a look at Ryan Tannehill, the quarterback for the Tennessee Titans heading into 2020. Let's take a look at his fantasy outlook. Now, the waiver wire darling of the quarterback position, someone that led a lot of people to Super Bowls last year, came back from the dead. A guy that most fantasy owners had essentially left in the graveyard and completely forgotten about, takes over in week 6. They replaces Marcus Mariota in the middle of the game and gets named the starter in week 7. For the entire year, he finishes with 2,700 passing yards, 22 passing touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions. Also adding a nice 185 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns to help pad his stats a bit. Finished with 230.2 fantasy points, 21st at the position, but from week 7 to 17 averaged 22.5 fantasy points a game, good enough to make him the 3rd best quarterback over that stretch of time. And looking at his game over game stats, it's pretty easy to see why. His only real negative game was against Indianapolis, in which he put up 13.8 fantasy points, but other than that, averaging at or above 20 points. I mean, what else could you have asked for someone that you were able to get for free on the waiver wire? Now, heading into the playoffs, obviously saw a massive increase to the rushing game volume for Derrick Henry. We saw a very scary low passing volume in the playoffs for the Tennessee Titans. And some of that could just be argued to how the game plans change as the playoffs happen. So I wouldn't read too much into that, but there has to be some regression coming for Ryan Tannehill. There's no way he's going to be able to, this was the outlier season of all outlier seasons. Had number 1 supporting cast efficiency in the NFL, had a higher passer rating than Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes with 118.2, had a 74.4% completion rating, number 6 in the NFL, 54.9 production premium, number 1 in the NFL, highest adjusted yards per attempt at 9.2. Obviously, A.J. Brown helping out with these stats a lot. 7.6 accuracy rating. Now, that is something that you can't really fake. So he was very accurate last year and was playing very well. Again, a lot of these efficiency numbers, they can't be sustained, especially for a quarterback that is going into a team that we expect to be a lower pass volume team. I mean, you could make the argument that they're not going to be able to run over teams as much with Derrick Henry heading into 2020, but maybe not, because Derrick Henry is a beast. If he can stay healthy, then maybe they're able to maintain a very similar, I mean, obviously that's the way that they want to play football. They go out, they pay Tannehill, but they also lock down Derrick Henry for a few more years. So they want to maintain a very similar offensive structure. So we're not expecting Ryan Tannehill to have massive volume, and obviously the efficiency is going to come down. So the original expectation from heading into the summer and thinking about where he was going to land, the expectation was that people that were able to pick him up off the waiver wire and knew how he finished the season, then he'd be going, along other guys that are historically ranked much higher. But that hasn't really seemed to happen. His ADP is still hovering based on what site you use between round 12 to 15, in some cases not even being drafted. So it's pretty easy to take a bet on Ryan Tannehill and drafting him pretty late in your redraft league and hoping that even though there's going to be some regression, hoping that it doesn't fall nearly as much and you can get a very valuable high floor, even if it's a lower ceiling, but a high floor quarterback that you can stream week in, week out. And especially this year with the uncertainty in just overall playing players who could potentially be coming down with COVID-19, could be a year where you're really going to want to shore up multiple starters at various positions that you would typically only carry one guy. So having a guy like Ryan Tannehill on your team might end up being a really smart strategy, especially if you have a additional bench spot or 2 based on how you guys do your league settings. So while I'm not expecting an MVP type season from Ryan Tannehill, is it really that hard to expect him to put up similar fantasy points compared to a lot of the low-end quarterback ones? Of course not. We have him projected for under 4,000 passing yards, to be expected if you're going to run the ball as much as the Titans did, but could still maintain a really high pass touchdown interception ratio, and that rushing volume really helps him. Even if he sees a lower number of touchdowns this year, which is where we have him projected, but finishing with 263 rushing yards, that really helps bring up your floor. So I really like the upside of Ryan Tannehill, even though we know his efficiency is going to come down because the way he played last year, it's just unsustainable to be able to do that again. Not going to have A.J. Brown averaging 20 yards per reception, but doesn't mean that it's going to come down enough to make him worthless. I think that he could still maintain a very high floor, week in, week out guy that you can play based on matchups. If you draft another volatile quarterback around him, he's going to be a guy that can help bring your roster in check and give you plenty of startable weeks. So someone you definitely want to keep your eye on and really think that he can maintain the fantasy value of the other guys in this offense. So let me know what you guys think below. Let me know if you, like me, also have an affinity for him because he helped you win some Super Bowls last year. And I'm really surprised that more people aren't remembering that. But again, I guess I'm glad because he's going so late. It's going to allow me to be able to pay the cheap price for him. So like Ryan Tannehill a lot this year. Not going to be the highest pass volume quarterback ever, but I think he'll be plenty valuable for fantasy. But what say you? Hit that subscribe button for more videos like this one, and we'll see you guys in the next one.